Oh, sorry, good to go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's great to see everyone. So today we're going to continue on with some questions we had, and we can open up the chat if we have time. We can open up the chat line for more questions. So get your questions ready if they weren't answered last week or they're not answered this week. A lot of the questions that people had, or difficulties that people felt they were really stumbling over and struggling with, we're going to start dealing with next week by working from a workbook that I really believe in. I don't mean to plug books, but there are some good ones. And this one by David Burns is excellent. It's one of the best I've ever found. And a lot of people were talking about that feeling of guilt that they experience when they make decisions that they're not 100% comfortable with, or those decisions seem to counteract some other really strong value or belief that they've been taught and that they've incorporated into their life. But, it's not an easy fit with what they have to actually do in their environment. So we're going to try to start. It may be 2-3 podcasts, because guilt doesn't stand alone. All right. It's part of a package. And if we're going to clean that up, or we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it in its proper dimension and context. So that may take 2 or 3 podcasts. So people asked for the link. Again, Jim, could you put it in the chat box for the book, particularly if you're in the United States? The Johns Hopkins link. If you could put that in the chat box, Jim, that would be great. And they are now offering right now a 40% discount on Conquer the Clutter. And I don't mean to pitch the book at all, but I know people have said that, COVID has cost them extra, and money was tight anyway. So if you were thinking of that, or you really want the book, ask somebody to give it to you for Christmas, and they can get a whopping deal. It's also, if you're buying in Canada, or you don't mind getting an extra deal in Canadian dollars, which runs about 27% of, no, it's a dollar minus, I think it's 75 to 77 cents on the American dollar. And right now, today, the 2nd of December, it's also available now on www.hoarding.ca. And you can pay using PayPal. So many people said they had PayPal accounts, and that would make it easier for them. So I have bought at my author's price quite a supply of them, and I'm prepared to pass on some savings to you as well. So have a look at that, in case, and that probably answers 6 questions that we had from last week. Okay, so one of the participants asked this: how long will all the podcasts be available to review? Because they're really, really helpful. They will be on www.hoarding.ca as long as the website exists. All right, we have no plans to take them down or to eliminate any of them. And I'm going to get someone, actually one of the participants, I think it was, let me have a look here, Shirley, said she had started to go through the podcasts one by one from the beginning, and would be happy to send me a list. So that would save me a lot of work. Shirley, if I could take you up on that offer. send me what the subject matter is, and then I will get Jim to post that as a banner for each of the podcasts. And then you can go straight to the podcast topic that you're looking for, that you want to review, you want to work with a little more. Okay, so Joseph made a reasonable suggestion here about dealing with people who don't listen, or who are pushing their opinions, their values, their rules on you as an independent adult who really probably didn't ask for their opinion or their judgment. He said, I found success when setting boundaries verbally to create a sentence ahead of time that's a short, accurate, non-mistakable. Then if the other person isn't listening or isn't being positive, keep repeating the same sentence over and over. That'll keep you from being sucked into a conversation that doesn't serve you. I think in part that's good advice. One of the things I'm going to ask participants though, and I do this in the hoarding support groups as well, we all have important, valuable, sometimes successful experiences with things we've tried. And so rather than couch it as advice for each other, I would rather that you position whatever you want to offer for the benefit of whoever is listening as, this was my experience, this is what I did, and I had reasonable success with it. So I offer it to you for whatever use you can make of it, rather than to seem to give advice. The one thing I would add, though, to what Joseph said was, I would suggest only repeating the message twice, because there's something about keep repeating the message that can provoke aggression or hostility in the other person. And if you're having a difficulty, you really don't need somebody who has that added emotional component now. On the third time, what I would suggest is make a respectful statement, something like, clearly I'm not being clear, or perhaps I'm not being clear, sorry, but I'm not clear about what I've said that you don't understand, all right? And watch your tone of voice when you do it, because it can be pretty annoying when you're feeling stressed to have somebody kind of seem to push you around a little, or get you in a corner, or say something that feels like a put down or a judgment or whatever. That can be pretty unsettling. And, if you're working on boundaries and limits, it can make you feel a little shaky. So that's what I would suggest. Repeat 2 times. If the person still is coming back, then say, maybe I'm not being clear, or maybe there was something about the way I expressed that wasn't clear to you. Can you tell me what you're not understanding? And deal with it from there, okay? So hand them back the, you're not understanding what I'm saying, and it's important to me to be clear, so let me help you out with that. Don't say it that way, though, okay? Because that would be a little snarky, okay? So Shirley, if you're out there, I want to thank you for your offer to send me a list of the podcast names, titles, and that would be very, very useful. Okay, so one of our other participants said, the blasphemy of deconstructing old books, letting go perfectly useful plastic containers and jam jars. She's saying this in a positive way. And on and on. I think the humor around the foolishness of us on holidays, no judgment about foolishness. Everyone needs the gift of seeing self clearly and with compassion. Yes. Okay, self-compassion. You are just like everyone else, even the people who seem to have it all together, who are giving you advice. You are flawed, imperfect human beings. And a little humility, a little humor, and a little self-acceptance of not my best day, not my best choice. Well, I have an opportunity for doing that differently. The positive, though, in facing down the letting go of whatever it is. Plastic containers are big, okay, because there's always an alternate use. But please tell me you are not reheating food in plastic containers. All right, I don't care if they are BPA free. I've had on good advice that is not something you want to do. So the positive, though, of parting with those things that seem to have such daily transferable use is what you're saving in the carbon footprint of having, if we keep those and we don't recycle them, of having to have those things produced, more and more and more of them, when some of us, if we got together with the plastics, because they do build up, and glass jars, heaven knows that glass jar has, you know, immeasurable importance. And the 10 of them is even 10 times better. So plastic has a way of building up, paper has a way of building up, books that are no longer of immediate or longer term interest to you, they have a way of building up too. If we can recycle them, the positive we're doing is that product becomes next year's book. That plastic becomes a container that they don't have to take more resources out of the earth or reproduce, or, you know, effluent that is released into the atmosphere. They reuse those things. All right, so that's the good we're doing. All right. What's the short list for the two groups of people? The short list of those two groups that people generally fall into, one is process people. Those are the people who need to reflect. They want to make a positive progress. They want to make that decision, but it's not a certainty. It's not comfortable enough right away. They need to reflect on it a bit. And those are the people that I suggest take the item or items, put them out where they remain visible. And throughout the next 4 to 6 days, walk by and just look at them and reflect on why they're up for decision. Are they 1, 2, 3s? Clearly, if they're up for decision, they're not 1, 2, 3s. That's the highest probability. So what would be the important reason not to let those go? Could they actually be 7s of the 7, 8, 9, 10s? And what do you need to say or do or develop some comfort with? What is that struggle you're having? All right, is it around values, beliefs, guilt? Hyper responsibility is another feeder of guilt. We were taught to be responsible, or we're naturally very responsible, and we just take on undue responsibility. All right. Is that what you're doing to yourself that isn't allowing you to let go of that thing? The other group of people are the one-time decision people. Those are the folks who want to work from one corner of the room, progressively, systematically, everything they touch, one at a time, they make a decision. It may take them 20 minutes to make the decision, but they make the decision. They don't want to have to come back. They want that clear space to be evident. They want to be able to get the payoff of that and the positive feedback. They don't process things in the same way. And I've noticed over the last 19 and a half years that people generally fall into one of those two groups more naturally. Whichever group you're in, it can work for you. There's no right or wrong. One isn't any better than the other. All right. Okay. So where are we here now? Okay. So one of our participants last time said, last night a friend said that hoarding was an addiction. And then I started to feel bad about myself again. You know who you are because you know your question. If anybody else was thinking that or has had that said to them, listen to what I'm about to say. All right. Hoarding is not an addiction. It can be. It can be a compulsive behavior anywhere on a continuum from 0, not compulsive, to 100, extremely compulsive. It depends on the individual and what's feeding it, okay? But here, it can look like an addiction in that compelling need to have, save, or not make decisions. It can look that way, but it can only look that way to the misinformed. All right? It's not an addiction. That's way oversimplifying. You're with the wrong group if you're thinking that that's what it has to be. It isn't. Okay, also, the same person felt badly because she didn't finish papers and other things I haven't got to because of health reasons, health problems. If you're not getting to doing it, there's a barrier. If you're attending this workshop, this podcast, okay, regularly, you want to do this. And what you want to do is you want to find out what the right barrier is so that you can address that barrier. That's why we cover so many topics, because some of them resonate with different people. That's part of your barrier. Okay, let's start working on that. Once you clear away the barrier, it will be much simpler for you. It's probably, if you have a lot of clutter, truth, it's probably never going to be a walk in the park. Okay, to not acquire, to not tell yourself you really should save that. And here are all the good reasons. All right, or fears. If I let it go, won't I feel silly if I need it next week? I paid good money for that. And you know what? I haven't had all those things that go through your mind, right down to the other end of that continuum. All right. That shoot at the end is making decisions. Making decisions is an exhausting, mentally fatiguing, physically exhausting, even if you don't get out of the chair. Do you know how many clients say to me when I say to them, nope, your job is to sit in the chair. My job is to cue you by picking one thing up at a time, and we process it, and we make the best decision you can make today. Right? At the end of it, after they have decided a lot of things, because that's a system that works, all right? When I see their face go tight, and I say, oh, and I asked him, what are you saying to yourself right now? What are you thinking? Well, and then we process that. Well, how true is that today? Is that an important factor, or was that an important factor? Is that, do you think, going to be important to your life tomorrow? Probably not. So what would be your best decision today? Oh, I probably don't need it. I don't need it. And it goes. Okay. So that is the process. If you can get a trusting, somebody you can trust, somebody who's not going to push you, not a bossy boots, not somebody who thinks they're going to organize your home, your mind, your life. All right. If you can get somebody like that, get them to read the book. It's right in the book. They can coach you. All right. You want to make those decisions. That's why you're here. We just need to clear away that barrier, and we need to get you being cued in a way that you can manage, and you will do what you need to do. Enough of it anyway. Okay, we have another question. Okay, someone said, I do have a question about photo albums. I have all the albums from my deceased mother, and she specifically asked me to keep them. Okay, remember that keep them. Remember that term. We're coming back to it. Some of them I love, and I wouldn't part with them anyway. But some I've never seen, and when I looked at them, it was a surprise and a revelation. Now, how can I part with them? But I've never seen them before, and they are a revelation. And I did promise that I would keep them. So you want to honor that undertaking with someone, in this case, your mother. Here's the thing, all right? I need you to understand this. This is why keeping tangible things in their original form is almost never a good idea. Because sooner or later, if it's a tangible thing, this is a tangible thing, this is a tangible thing, other things are tangible things, papers are tangible things. Sooner or later, as soon as you get it, the clock is ticking on when it's not going to work, when it's going to break, when it's going to disappear, when da-da-da-da. All right, when those are going to fade, when the humidity in the house goes up and you didn't realize it, and whatever that covering, that finish on the pictures is, it's going to stick to the back of the page previously. You're going to open it to enjoy it, then you're going to feel guilty because the photograph came away from the backing and now you don't have it anyway. So a client many years ago who was having a real deterioration, like a significant deterioration in his physical health, had many of those little slides, all right? And it was going to come to pass that he wasn't going to physically be able to put them in the little slide chamber, the little caddy that goes around. He wasn't going to be able to lift the machine. That machine's going to break and you're not going to be able to get it replaced, and those slides or pictures aren't going to be of any use to you. This is why this is so important, all right? And so we took them to a company and we had them all scanned and put on an external hard drive. And in his case, so that he could continue to have, he was alone, he could continue to have the joy that those photographs of better times in his life could be for him, that meaning, he could stay having that joy and satisfaction. We put them as a changeable wallpaper on his laptop, all right, or on his computer as well. And so he could pull his walker over, it was a walker first and then it was a wheelchair, over to the desk, and he could just sit there, and everything that he wanted to remember that was so precious to him just went by like some kind of a rolling movie. The technology has become so much simpler. You can do that for yourself now. You don't have to hire a company, all right? Maybe if you don't know how to do that, maybe you send it out to the universe in your network and say, look, I'm looking to exchange favors. Is somebody a real technocrat that they really know how to do this, so it happens reliably? Would they do this for me and I'll do something for them? Okay, barter, trading off jobs. But for heaven's sakes, if those pictures are important to you, get them scanned, because a day is coming and it's going to be heartbreaking, and that will be a source of guilt that somehow you didn't do a good enough job of keeping them, that in some way you failed. You broke your word to your mother. You let her down. Don't set yourself up for that. All right? Get them scanned, get them on an external hard drive, and keep them safe. It also occupies, how much do those also occupies that much space. Okay, how much space are those photo albums taking up? Okay. Okay. And there are some mammoth capacity external hard drives, I have to tell you. Don't keep it on your computer though, all right? Because when your computer goes down and it crashes, you can lose content. external hard drive. If you can't do it, find a buddy and do a favor for them so that they do that for you. All right, and then put it part of your wallpaper. Make it part of your wallpaper on your computer, and see those pictures. Make them part of your everyday life. That you're getting the joy out of it. You're getting the reason that your mother wanted you to keep those pictures. You're actually incorporating that into your life. Okay, so where are we here now? Let me have a look. We have 8 questions. So one of our participants asked, and I want to go over this because I didn't really have a chance to answer it in detail last week. If someone with ADD takes about 10 to 15 minutes to find his or her focus, how long should that person work? All right. Equal time is what I say. Equal time to what it took you to get focused and actually start. That's not work time. All right. It is productive in that every time you do it, even though it can be very frustrating, all right? Sometimes it's like you feel like you're walking up a hill that's on a really steep incline, right? But every time you do it, seriously, you make it easier and easier and easier by little tiny baby steps. Every time you don't do it, you make it less likely that you will do it, and it's not practiced. You never become efficient or effective at it that way. But you do become efficient and effective at avoidance and feeling bad about yourself. Okay. So when you start, okay, again, you're starting 15 minutes, set the timer. I don't mean 16 minutes. I don't mean half an hour. I mean, when you're starting, 15 minutes, and only after you can start that and do that 15 minutes just as easily as pie do you start adding another 15 minutes. But only if you finish that second 15 minutes. Is it about 15 minutes? No. Is it about a half hour? No. Are you going to change the world in that? You'll change your world one tiny baby step at a time. You're not going to change the big pile in that time, no. But you are becoming better at being altogether now self-regulated. That's the key. That's what that's about. When you give your word to someone, you keep it probably. Do the same for yourself. Show up for yourself. And how are you going to do that? You're going to do that by making yourself do something for 15 minutes that moves you forward. I had another thought on a pre-step for some people who are on that, okay? Because there are other things that can get in the way. One of my participants shared with me that her history is really extreme to the extreme. Control growing up, like we're talking control here, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional control by somebody who fancied themselves really well organized, but actually was an enormous bully. And she still feels that little thing inside that, yeah, you can't make me, you can't make me. If I didn't think of it and I don't want to do it, you can't make me. And even though now nobody is doing that, this is her own plan, she says she still struggles with that. It's like the first place she goes to, but that's because of this profound, basically abuse, all right, to the point of, I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say trauma, all right? That complete disrespect. She never had the chance to do anything but be quiet, smile, say something positive, and then avoid it. All right, that passive part. And that's what she's struggling with. What are you struggling with? What are you struggling with? All right. So here's what I thought. And I would really appreciate people's feedback in emails to me or in the chat box. If you can't make yourself start 15 minutes and go 15 minutes, no more, no less, doing something at your own pace, would you be able to stand in front of the piles? Now, this may sound silly, but it does generate energy. And look at the piles for 15 minutes, actually physically look at them, and just march in place. Just step, 1 step, 2 step, 3, just back and back like this. March in place for 15 minutes. Would you be able to do that while you're looking at the piles? That physical activity will get the energy flowing, all right? And maybe you're going to get sick and tired of marching in place, and you're actually going to start picking a thing up, looking at it, and considering what you can do with it. Nobody says you have to be going like a, Wally the Beaver for 15 minutes. You've got to be trying to move forward for 15 minutes. So anybody who's stuck, can you try that just to get the juices flowing? Okay. Let me see. Oh, yes. Okay. And somebody else said, I look at the 1s through to 10s, but at this point, I can't throw any of them away. What can I do? And so it's, first of all, don't panic. Secondly, don't feel defeated. Okay. What is your brain trying to tell you? What are you saying to yourself? That's very, very powerful. And the other thing, watch the language you use. Listen to it. Don't just change it to be cute. Listen to the language you use. In this case, this person said, I can't throw any of them away. Why are you thinking of throwing anything away? Why are you coming at it from what you have to get rid of? Would it make a difference? Try just changing that. You're doing the same thing, but you just change your perspective a bit. Try sitting there in front of your piles for 15 minutes and dig or pluck the 1, 2, 3s. Look for the jewels. All right? If you're not familiar with that term, for heaven's sakes, get the book. All right? Christmas is coming. Get the book. And start working page by page. You don't have to read the whole thing through. Go through the index. What are the subjects that you're particularly interested in or that you're having trouble with? Work at it that way. And then once you're sitting there plucking the 1, 2, 3s, saving the precious things, I want you to look at those precious things. And I want you to have a relationship with them. I want you to identify why in your mind, in your heart, that thing is a 1, 2, 3. And when you find the things and you save the things that are the absolute most important to you, because of the relationship you have with them, you're going to be able to look at the other things and go, doesn't even cut the mustard. All right. So it's a little like going to a party. I just had this image. I offer it to you for whatever use you can make of it, because many people are very visual. So you're going to a party and you go into the room and there are all the people in there, to one degree or another. Who are you going to go and talk to first? Chances are you're going to go and talk to and spend your first time, your most important fresh time, with the people you know and like the best. That's all I'm saying about the 1, 2, 3, finding your precious things, your jewels. All right? Because those are the things that mean the most to you. And you know what? If there were 50 people in that room, there probably are more than 50 things in a pile. Maybe you wouldn't get around to spending any time with the people at the other end, nice as they are. I mean, they were invited for a reason, right? You brought them home for a reason. But when you look at the importance of the 1, 2, 3s, these special friends, these close friends, these important friends, maybe you really don't want to waste your time or give up any time, any space. Time and space is limited. Time and space is limited. That's why it's so precious. So think of these things as friends that, frankly, you want to spend your time at the party of life with the 1, 2, 3s. Okay? And the others, thanks for coming, but actually, I've decided to spend my time, my energy, my life force, okay, my excitement, my joy with these things. All right? Okay. So, give it up here. I thought this was really cute because it's a cute image. So one of the participants said, I videotape myself on time lapse when she's working in her 15 minutes. And when I play it back, it looks like a super speedy film. My 30 minutes of cleaning, she's graduated onto 30, looks and goes by in 30 seconds. I also take a before and after picture. So that's just a fun way of giving yourself validation, right? All right, let me have a look, make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm going to finish last week's on this, and then we're going to handle the 9 questions that are in the chat box. Another person said, I remind myself, this blouse is not, so these are things that probably belong to someone else that she's been gifted or bequeathed. This blouse is not that other person. This dress is not that other person. This is a blouse. A blouse is a blouse. Okay. And it takes no time to say that, but be gentle with yourself. It may take time. It may take time for you to repeat that and really let it sink in. One time I had a client who had clothing probably 2 feet deep over her bedroom, and I was concerned it would be a tripping hazard if she ever had to exit in a hurry. And so we went to the closet to see, and the closet was half full of her deceased mother's clothes. And she had pictures of her mother in those clothes. So we did some grief work. We talked about the clothes are the clothes. Her mother had been deceased long enough that they no longer had her mother's scent in it. It wasn't a transition thing to comfort yourself, because you can go and, kind of be with the person a little better through your sense of smell. And so what we agreed on is we would find the pictures of her mother wearing some of these clothes, and we would set them out. And she would go and put the clothing on. All right. She would get dressed in them. She would come out. She would walk around. Oddly enough, she and her mother were pretty much the same size. And she would make that hers. All right. It would be something they shared. And she would look at the picture and she would explain to her mother, Mom, I'm gonna break my neck someday. And like, I'm now 42. I need to learn to hang up my clothes before I have an accident. And I'm really tired of having to steam clean them or steam press them off the floor in order to go to work in them. I'm late for work, I'm getting in trouble, I'm pressured, and I've been holding on to your clothes. And I'm hoping that you can understand that I'm, as hard as it is, I'm going to let them go. I'm going to let them go a few at a time. And Elaine's going to take them, and she's going to take them to the hub in Almont. And somebody who really needs a beautiful dress, because her mother had great clothes, but they certainly weren't of the vintage for this young professional woman. All right. And so she would sit in the clothes, she would say goodbye. She would take them off, fold them up, put them in a bag, go put another one on. We gradually worked through half that cupboard. All right. And the image that I gave her, which is true, all right, is somebody right now is wearing that dress or that suit to a job interview. And don't you kid yourself. All right. The clothes make the man. All right. If somebody comes in and they look like they're pulled together and they've taken care with themselves, an employer is going to think that's the way they'll take care of my job and my clients. All right. And it may be the deal breaker, but it certainly will give them more confidence in their presentation. So maybe they will present what they have to offer with more confidence and assurance as well than if they had to go to Value Village and hope to lock in, all right, and to get something that would suit a job interview. And so whatever you need to imagine needs to happen, that's what I want you to get help making happen. And let go of the things that are not you today moving forward. Okay, so let's open up the chat. Oh, where are we here now? Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Webcast Wednesday. James Byrne is actually, okay, Joseph Kiss. Hello, Joseph. Here's the link to the book. Thank you, Jim. It's the second entry there. I emailed a handwritten list with most of the session main topics on the 26th as a guide. I will look for it. Is it in your name, Shirley? Would need to fill in the rest and type before posting. Best if as labels on, labels on the podcast. Okay, Shirley, if you could keep that up, that would be greatly appreciated, because did I mention that time is finite? I love that. Make the best, yes. Make the best decision you can make today. Tomorrow may not be the same day. All right. You don't have to worry about tomorrow. If tomorrow is a bigger challenge, make the best decision you can make today. Tomorrow. Okay. All right. Okay. I am really happy to hear, Colette, that you are going to be kinder and gentler with yourself. All right. You have some really, really good ideas. Try to be gentle and patient with yourself without, this is not quite the right term, but I believe in us challenging ourselves. Okay, what is the best I can do? Not the easiest. Not that I don't feel like it so. Particularly when you're trying to, all together now, self-regulate, okay? When you're trying to learn that skill, like things like, I say to myself, and you've heard this 100 times, Elaine, just do it now. It's never going to get easier. Just do it now, all right? There is no just for now. On a really bad day, but there is no just for now. If you want to show up to do a podcast with people, you have to walk the talk, even if you don't hoard. Okay? There are no exceptions just because you don't hoard. Remember that third path? How are you managing your physical and mental health, wellness? And then something happens, a big event or a series of smaller events. Hands up, folks. Did anybody plan on ending up with all this clutter? Was this a goal you actually had? That third path is a very risky one that I believe most people could end up in this position. That's why it's not an addiction. Okay. Yeah, beating yourself up. But when you beat yourself up and you're not kind and patient, all right, with yourself, which does not mean babying, it means kind and patient. Whose voice is on that tape? Because you were not born beating yourself up. All right. If you have said that to yourself so often that you've voiced over whatever that is that you're saying, then ask yourself a different question. Whose message is that? Whose face do you see? Who's the first person you think of when you say those things to yourself? And it's time to leave that meeting. All right. That's the committee in your head. It's time to just excuse yourself from that meeting and turn down the volume. Okay. How do I handle my own anxiety and clutter? And also my husband, who is a garbage hoarder in denial. So, Gwen, you've sent this to everyone. Can you, for next week, send me an email? Because this is about anxiety and guilt, and this is about perception, and we're going to be talking about problematic thinking styles, guilt, and anxiety, and why that comes across as guilt, okay, and what to do about it. Can you send me more information? I'd like to have as much detail as possible, all right, and background on your anxiety, what you're feeling, that you want to share, okay, how that relates to the clutter building up. And also your husband, when you say garbage, what do you mean by garbage? All right, because I'm betting when he looks at it, he doesn't see garbage if he keeps it. And what does he say to himself? What does he say to you that explains the importance of this or the reason it's there? All right, let's drill down a bit. Okay. Call that with the invisible baseball bat for myself. Put the baseball bat away. Baseball bats are off limits. Okay. How about validations? How about affirmations? You know that baseball bat? You're probably carrying it around in your mind. Everywhere that you have reasonable privacy, I don't mean on your front door or on your fridge if people walk by. I want you to put, sticky notes with affirmations. Okay. I am a flawed, imperfect human being, just like I'm supposed to be, just like everybody else. All I have to do today is show up for myself and make the best decisions I can make today. Tomorrow is another day, Scarlett. We don't have to nail down a perfect future. All right? Okay. 3-day wait was worth it. All right. Okay, I think we have. Are there any other questions? Anything else that people want to know? Yeah, this business about I frequently think I'm being lazy. You know, people, I've done this 19 and a half years, and until maybe 3 years ago, I was working 7 days a week, every time slot. That's how common this problem is. This issue is, okay? Now I'm working every more time slots, 6 days a week. All right. You're in good company. A lot of people are trying to get beyond the clutter. And in that whole time, and I'm not just saying this to be nice or compassionate or, warm and fuzzy. I have never met one person who ended up in clutter or what qualifies as a hoarded environment, met those criteria, who was lazy. Overwhelmed, yes. Frustrated and defeated, yes. Blaming the bejeebers out of themselves, yes. Feeling inadequate, yes. Feeling defensive, yes. Feeling angry, yes. Feeling judged, yes. So when you're talking about lazy, all right, any of those emotions or judgments that I've just listed, are they life enhancing? Do any of those make you feel better? Do any of those add positive energy? The only way we're getting out of the challenges we have and beyond them is through positive energy, not by beating ourselves up. No one ever accomplished anything that was difficult by feeling less about themselves or beating themselves up. That's not necessary. To show up for yourself, you need to be kind to yourself. You need to be compassionate to yourself. You need to be gentle but firm with yourself. And you need to do 15 minutes of something, even if it's marching in place in front of the piles, even if it's sitting in a chair and just familiarizing yourself with what's in the piles to find the jewels. All right, okay. But I knew I'm not, I know. These days too, my goodness, this is a really good reminder. Alina, thank you. Most people these days, all right, most people don't have one job that pays enough with benefits and holidays and time off and stat leave. All right, most people don't have that. Most people are patchworking together a series of jobs, or they're starting over with a job that doesn't have benefits, that doesn't give you that cushion that you can count on. So Nat says to everything, I'm finding the truth of what you mentioned today about picking out the gems. I have a bin of books in my yard under a tarp. I looked through and noticed all these books. I saw the journal from my youth tucked in the side. All the other books might be on the way to the free box eventually, but picking out that one book might be the whole point. That's exactly what we're talking about. Good for you, Nat. Good for you. And nobody gets to say what the 1, 2, 3s are for you. Okay, that's one of the hallmarks of a really good clutter buddy, is that they can respect that you get to say what makes something important and meaningful. The only thing I would really, really recommend is that if clutter has sat around for a while, unfortunately, bibits and mice love clutter. They love piles. And if there's mouse scat, or if there's mouse scat, then I have news for you. They also urinated on the things because they're not house trained, those little devils. And you should have nitrile gloves and an N95 mask. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Just bear with me for a second. So an N95 mask, I'm going to show you a variety. Okay, I'll wear the nitrile gloves. All right. So something like this or like this. This is one of my clients actually. These aren't cheap, but They're really good and they're really useful. Now, the only reason that this mask did not get a true approval, valid like sticker for N95, even though it does meet the requirements, is that it is, you wear it with earpieces, okay, which makes it so much more comfortable. But there is a medical grade silicone seal here all the way around, and I wear this everywhere. And then inside there's a changeable filter. This little plastic thing comes off, and there's a filter in there, and that is N95 standard. And they go like this. And that is sealed. It's not putting pressure on. You can hear, you can breathe. I particularly like this one because I don't have something sitting on my face. Unknown caller. And there's another version of unknown caller. Okay, I'm going to have to turn this down because I don't know who's calling me from Columbus, Ohio. Okay. All right. All right. This is another version. Now, the N95 masks need to have a crimp at the nose. All right. I'm going to end up. Okay, so let me show you. And the N95 standard is that, whoops, there we go. It has a headband like this that keeps it against your face. So N95 mask, if there's any mouse scat, don't be brave, all right? And also nitrile gloves. And nitrile gloves, you can get those at Home Depot. You can get them practically anywhere. But make sure that they're nitrile, that they do protect your hands again. And then when you're taking them off, take them by the wristband and pull them forward. Don't pull them off like this, like at the fingers, okay? When you're cleaning up mouse scat. The other thing about mouse scat, and we'll end on this, is the drier it is, the less safe it is. All right, the more risky it is, because it does become it becomes like an aerosol when you walk on it, and you think it's dust in the air. It's not dust in the air, and you're breathing that in. And 1 in 5 mice has a virus that affects your respiratory system. If you can see one mouse, you probably have 5 to 20. All right, particularly at this time of year. So wear the mask, wear the gloves, and if it's dry, if you're picking piles up and you notice mouse scat, it looks like black rice. Shake it out with the mask on, okay, and then spray it. Just dampen it with a spray water bottle, and then clean it up carefully. All right. Good. Watch out for mouse scat. Watch out for bird droppings as well. They're very toxic.
Colette says to everybody, I need a clutter buddy. Anyone interested in being a virtual clutter buddy with me? And she's put her phone number.
Okay, so that's a thought. Just obviously, you'd need to get to know the person. You would need to exchange ideas if anybody wants to pick Colette up on that offer. And perhaps you can support one another as well. Just obviously, meeting people online is not the same as being introduced by somebody who knows them. And so everyone, buyer beware. So if there are no more questions, then we're going to end for today. And next week, what we're going to do is talk about problematic thinking styles as they relate to creating guilt anxiety, feeding other comorbidities like depression, or self-judgment, social isolation, all of those other what we call comorbidities are fed by these problematic thinking styles. And then we're also, if we have time, going to talk about what to do about them. If we run out of time next week handling the first part, that'll be the subject of the next podcast, because I've had a lot of questions about how do I get beyond anxiety? What do I do with my anxiety? How do I park it so that I can get things done? Or depression, or whatever other burdens we carry. Put your burdens down for a while today. Take a break from it, okay? Be good to yourself. Find 3 things when you get off this podcast, 3 things to go, yay me about, all right? Because we are all a mixed blessing, myself included. You take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.